Welcome to the WrestleFan Talk Show. I'm Ron.
Ashley.
All right, we're going to be doing probably a long podcast here tonight. I want to talk all AEW, talk about Revolution. I want to cover what happened on Dynamite. I also want to throw some sports things in there. My top 12 NBA players of all time. And then I want to do something fun, wrestling related. I'm going to call it Wrestlemania Mashup. It's where I'm going to take 3 Wrestlemanias in a row, like 1, 2, and 3, and with a little caveat of 12 matches. I can't have a match that has the IC title twice, one world championship, things of that nature. So it kind of limits me. What the basis is I take all the matches that happen from, let's say, WrestleMania 1, 2, and 3, and I make a 12 match card and see what I come up with.
Yeah.
It does limit me. I can't use the same wrestler twice. Like I said, I can't use a title defense twice. But we'll get to that a little bit later on. I want to jump right into a great pay-per-view that happened last week, and that was AEW Revolution. You watched a little bit with me, Ashley. You were in and out.
I think I watched most of it with you.
Yeah, you might have missed the tag team title match.
Which one was that?
The triple threat with the Young Bucks.
Yeah, I think I probably had to do something with the kids.
Yeah, and I think that it was really hard to pick match of the night, but that was a contender for it. But let's just jump right into the Revolution. I like that they had the show prior to it where it was the buy-in.
Yeah.
They had 3 great matches. They had Layla Hirsch and Chris Statlander. They're really pushing her, meaning Layla Hirsch as a bad girl. She turned on Statlander earlier last month. So she's only been a bad girl for about a month or so. And they put on a good show, really got over that Statlander, not necessarily Statlander. Statlander's kind of changing her look a little bit.
Yeah.
She didn't even do her great entrance. I don't know if she's getting away from the alien thing or not. But she looked great in it and putting her over. But the main thing was she made Layla look like a top contender. Because Layla won the match. Of course, she cheated to do so, to really put home the fact that she's bad.
Yeah.
Then we had Taz's son, Hook. Was that the first time you saw Hook?
No.
No, so Hook looked pretty impressive against QT Marshall, the quintessential jobber guy for AEW. He's a guy that will beat all the unknown people, but he will lose to anyone that has a name, and that's QT Marshall and his group of guys. When you see them in a match, they're probably going to lose.
Yeah.
Unless they're on the YouTube channels. But Hook looked good. I like what they're doing with Hook. It's something new. It's something, at first, I looked at him and I was like, oh, that's kind of bland in that. But you know what? It's a nice mix of what you're seeing out there today.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
No glitz and glamour. Comes out, gets the job done, and leaves. He's more non-glitz and glamour than his father was.
Yeah.
Taz tried to present himself that way, but there was a little bit more of a spectacle with Taz than there was with Hook. And so he's doing a great job as a young kid like that, knocking it out of the park, staying in that zone that he's in. So I really enjoyed that. Then we had a great 6-man tag of the House of Black, Brody King, Malachi Black, and their new partner, Buddy Matthews. He was formerly Buddy Murphy in the WWE, so he's new to the game here in AEW. And they pick up a big win over Pentagon. And they had Pac. They were going to have Phoenix, but he's not quite ready to come back from that injury.
Yeah.
Hopefully he comes back soon. I'm just glad. Supposedly it wasn't broke, that arm.
That's good.
But it looked like a spaghetti noodle.
Yeah.
So that was kind of bad. And of course, Eric Redbeard. Now there's so the House of Black picks up the victory. Of course, they beat Eric Redbeard because I don't think he signed with AEW. So that was a smart move on their part. Just have the guy that came in to fill a spot lose. 2 kind of problems I see in this for the good guys. Alex Abrahantes is starting to dress like he's like a demon, or I don't know what he is, but Pentagon, who supposedly is a different version of himself,
Yeah.
a more evil version. However, I don't get that from him. It's almost like it's Pentagon with just a different look. He's
Mhm.
still doing the hand sign of Cero Miedo. And to me, if I'm going to go into the deepest, darkest part of me, another version of me, I'm not going to be doing my hand signs. If I'm supposed to be this demon, this darkness, I'm not even paying attention to the crowd. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
I'm more devilish.
Yeah.
I'm not doing
Well, if you're
Cero
gonna change
Miedo.
up your look, change it up, change out the whole persona.
Yeah, so Alex Abrahantes, who should have just stayed Alex Abrahantes instead of this dark thing, just because you're his manager doesn't mean that all of a sudden you're reaching into your deepest, darkest.
Yeah.
You're just his manager. You're his guy that just talks for him. So that was one problem I had. The other problem, Eric Redbeard. I mean, why don't we just have a guy called Johnny Face Paint? I
Yeah.
mean, yes, your beard is red and a little gray now. I don't like the name.
No.
Eric Redbeard. Uh,
It's more like a pirate.
yeah, they were like, we got a monster. Eric Redbeard. That doesn't sound like a monster.
No.
That sounds like a guy describing himself. Hi, I'm Eric, and my beard is red. Like that doesn't scare me at all. Have a intimidating name. If I'm wearing a blue shirt, I'm not going in. I'm Ronnie Blue Shirt. I don't need. I can see you got a red beard. I don't need you to be Eric Redbeard.
Oh my goodness.
Give me a strong monster name. Jeez. Anywho, the pay per view kicks off. Great matchup. Eddie Kingston versus Chris Jericho.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah, Jericho even said, and we'll get to what happened on Dynamite, but Jericho even said that this was his best match at AEW.
Oh, really?
Jericho's got himself in some great shape, and of course, something big went down on Dynamite, which we'll cover here shortly. But Kingston picks up the victory, and Jericho really made Kingston look great, and Kingston made Jericho look great. And there was supposed to be a handshake at the end, and Jericho did not do it. So he walked off. But if you want, I'm telling you, if you haven't watched this pay per view, if there's a way to watch it, which is kind of weird. I've never ordered a pay per view. I've already, know the results of or anything like that. But I mean, if you just want to be entertained, even though you know who wins and loses, this match, just based off of in ring action, is entertaining
It
from
is.
beginning to end. You will not get bored. There were a few down matches, and the only reason they were down is because they were being a basic match. Like it wasn't like it was a bad match, but it was like compared, you go to a Metallica concert and then Phil Collins shows up.
Yeah.
Phil Collins, great singer. I can feel it coming in the air tonight. But the level of loudness in that kind of drops. Doesn't mean it's a bad song or he's not bad at entertaining you, but it's just that different aura that was going on, which was great. So Kingston picks it up with a submission hold. So Jericho taps out. So not only does he lose to Kingston, he taps out to him, which is like the ultimate sign of, hey, here you go.
Yeah.
Here's your chance, which is great. They're really building Kingston up. And it's happening, what's the word I'm looking for? Organically.
Yeah.
The fans got behind him. It's not like it's shoved down your throat. Kingston doesn't win all his matches all the time. He's not invincible like some of the wrestlers I've mentioned before.
Mm-hmm.
He feels pain. He has weaknesses. He's a normal dude, and he's doing a great job at being that. Nothing else, nothing spectacular about Eddie Kingston. But he's great. So then here's the three-way tag match that you missed. Awesome match. Jurassic Express pick up the victory here over Red Dragon and the Young Bucks. And let me tell you, I've watched a lot of wrestling matches, but they pulled off some maneuvers that I had never seen before. Some combinations where they're working together that you would have to check out. Jungle Boy hitting a move and going right into another move on another person. So meaning that I can't really think about what the move was. I think
Yeah.
it might have been. It's been a week. It might. Let's just say it might have been like a Frankensteiner off the top rope.
Okay.
But when he flipped, like the guy flew over, and as he lands, there's another opponent crouching in the corner. So when he flips, the other guy goes flying, and Jungle Boy lands and is already starting to perform a belly to back suplex on the other guy. So it was one of those fluent maneuvers. So these guys worked great together. So that may be the match of the night.
Yeah.
On pure in-ring performances was that triple threat tag team match. I'm actually shocked that Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus are still the tag team champions.
Yeah.
Based off of, I didn't think, and I could be very wrong, that they were supposed to win that night. That Phoenix broke his arm or whatever he did to his arm. Dislocated an elbow, they say. So I'm shocked. I mean, if it's not planned, they're doing a great job of taking what they're given and then rolling with it.
Yeah.
A lot of times in wrestling, things happen accidentally, and it actually turns out better than what you had planned before. So this may be one of those type of things that are happening. Then we had the face of the Revolution ladder match. I was looking forward to this based off of the big guys that were in the matchup. We had Wardlow, we had Keith Lee, and we had Powerhouse Hobbs. And then they mixed in 3 smaller opponents that can really fly around. And you got Orange Cassidy, Ricky Starks, and Christian. Now, when I say fly around, these aren't your typical high flyers per se.
Yeah.
But movement-wise, you got Christian in there. He's been in the best ladder matches that there ever were. So you have that experience in there. Of course, Ricky Starks. And then Orange Cassidy, who did fly.
Yeah.
He flew a little too far.
So they threw him a little bit too far.
So in the match, Keith Lee, he is really stepping up. I mean, he's been great since he's debuted. And I love the way he throws people. And
he threw him all right.
He threw Orange Cassidy to the outside of the ring, and there were a few wrestlers out there that were supposed to catch him, and Orange kept going. Yeah. And he was actually really injured during this matchup with that shoulder injury. Then there was a scary part where I thought Ricky Starks re-aggravated his injury because he had broke his neck before. And so there was like the ending of the match. It was a power bomb onto a ladder, and it looked like the ladder was maybe supposed to break. It didn't. It looked bad, but he ended up being okay. But Wardlow wins this one. Now, after he won, I go, okay, that makes sense, because they're wanting to set up something with him and MJF or something like that. I'm like, okay, because they've been talking about it. But going in, I was thinking, man, Keith Lee, let's get him on a roll. But they decided to go and continue on with the storyline with Wardlow and MJF. But Keith Lee, I mean, he may be the first black heavyweight champion of AEW. Oops, I just punched my microphone.
You were so excited.
Yeah, but and I only say that because I don't look at, like I said, I don't look at color. I only say that because a lot of people, the first this and the first that, but a lot of people pay attention to that. And it means a lot to different cultures. Like when Ron Simmons beat Vader. And he was the first black WCW champion. So I do see where if it hasn't happened before, it's a big deal. But to me, I'm not looking at Keith Lee just because he's black to be the first black champion. Like if he was a big white guy and he's doing what he's doing, I'd be like, that's going to be a world champion as well. So it's not just because, let's get the first black champion or anything like that. Keith Lee deserves a world title just because he's Keith Lee. Not because of any skin color or anything like that. Because he can move around. Now, was I a big Keith Lee fan in WWE and NXT? I didn't really watch much of it. And when I did, I wasn't that impressed. I'll be honest. I was like, oh. But now that I'm sitting there, and it may be more of the freedom that he has.
Most likely, he's probably getting to utilize a lot of things that he didn't get to use.
Yeah, because I had
Showing
heard
off
of
more
him.
of his talent, you know.
I had heard of him coming up.
Yeah.
Had never seen his match, but I've heard of Keith Lee. In fact, a buddy of mine texted me one time. He was at an event in the Northeast area, and Keith Lee was there. I was like, "Hey, man, I've heard some good things about Keith Lee. I hadn't watched him, but I had heard." And now that I see him and he's doing his maneuvers, he's great. I enjoy a Keith Lee match. I can watch him all day. But Wardlow picks up the big victory here in this ladder match. And they did a good job of taking Keith Lee and Powerhouse Hobbs out of the match, far away from the ring, to give that excuse of why they lost.
Yeah.
So that was a good cover for if Keith Lee was going to lose. Then we had Jay Cargill defending against Tay Conti, the TBS championship. This is where I wasn't really a fan of the match. Not because it's women. Just I'm basing it off of the in-ring thing. I didn't really care for this match too much. It wasn't a bad match, but like I said, I went from a ladder match to now we got this kind of a basic match. And these are some of the examples I'm talking about of, okay, now we're dropping it back down. But you kind of need that.
Yeah.
You kind of got to have that balance. Let me reset the pay-per-view. And it's a title match. It's an important match, but let's not go too crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And so Cargill picks up the victory over Tay Conti. Tay Conti, I believe, had a unique look to her. I think she might have had her face painted a little bit there.
Yeah,
she was going to war. Again, maybe this would have been better recording right after it happened. I'm trying to remember from like a week ago of what happened. So going into that matchups, but they're really building Jay Cargill up. Whoever beats Jay Cargill is going to become a superstar, whichever lady they decide to choose, because they're building her as a superstar. So it's almost like a Goldberg run from WCW. Up next, the dog collar match.
That was a good one.
CM Punk and MJF. So MJF, he's first out, but they play CM Punk's song. Look in my eyes? What do you see? And then MJF's song hits. And right when they did that, I go, they're probably going to do a different song for CM Punk. And they started playing a different song. Now, I'll be the first to admit, did I know what song it was? No. Did I watch CM Punk in Ring of Honor? I didn't. I didn't watch Ring of Honor until 2009. But I kept up with Ring of Honor, just the results and things of that nature. I first discovered Ring of Honor when I was in Iraq in 2003. When I would have a break, I would just look up wrestling things, and I was like, oh, it's like a new company. And I read about the Briscoes, and I think Xavier, a wrestler, I think he recently passed, was the world champion. It's where I learned about Low Key, Christopher Daniels. And then I was a big AJ Styles fan when I came back, so I was watching a lot of TNA at that time. And so they shared a lot of talent.
Yeah.
So I missed CM Punk in TNA. He was there for a short time, and I didn't watch him in Ring of Honor. So I never watched an entrance, is what I'm getting at. So I didn't know that was his Ring of Honor. So, of course, I knew CM Punk was in Ring of Honor. You could have asked me, and I would have never guessed that song in a million years. But it's a great song. I've been listening to it since. So, and I loved AFI. It's by AFI. So I would listen to a couple of their hit songs, AFI, back when they were out. So this is but it sounded great, and it meant a lot, it seems, because a lot of people were all into it. He comes out, he has his old school look, great feel to the match, heading into it. And then they put on a great show with this dog collar match.
It was a good show.
Utilizing the chain, the facial expressions, just all around a great dog collar match. I would say better than Cody Rhodes and Brody Lee.
Yeah.
Because I'll admit, when I watched their match, and I probably would have watched it more had I known, if I had known that was Brody Lee's last match ever. I was kind of fading in and out of that match. It was on Dynamite, so it was like, eh. But this one, I was all into it. Because that story, I mean, it could have been any match. I would talk to you about wrestling before. It's really there's different types of matchups you can have. You can have the great wrestling match, or you can have the match that means something, where every punch you throw, people are into it. It could be a very basic match.
Yeah.
You don't have to do death-defying stunts. But this match here had both. It was a great match, death-defying stunts, and had a great storyline where you were hanging on every punch.
Yes, you did.
So every moment, there was not a boring spot. They utilized the chain well. The only thing I didn't like, I don't understand why tags have to get into every match.
Maybe that's just their staple. They have to just get those tags out.
I just don't.
I don't know. It doesn't make any sense.
It's already a dog collar.
They could have done without that.
Yeah,
and it was going great. So
yeah. My thing is, you already have the stipulation.
mm-hmm.
You already have the actual object of the match. It's a dog collar match. If you have a TLC match, you don't need to have the bag of tacks. Or did I call them staples?
Tax staples, almost the same thing.
It's tacks. If I said staples earlier, I misspoke. You already have the chain. It's like a cage match. You don't need to. You already have the object.
Yeah.
Now, if it was a hardcore match, sure. Because hardcore match means anything goes. I'm bringing everything. But you already have a dog collar match. You don't need the tacks. But anyways, that was the only part that was weird. But the big thing out of this is CM Punk wins. And how does he win? Wardlow comes down. Looks like he's going to help MJF out.
I thought that was hilarious.
And acts like he can't find the ring. Like he's the worst best man at a wedding. And CM Punk hits MJF with the go to sleep. And then Wardlow finds the ring all of a sudden.
It's like, oh, there it is.
Yeah. And puts it on the ring, and CM Punk uses it and beats MJF. So a great carryover of a storyline. And that's what I've talked to you about. Again, I've talked to you for hours and hours throughout my life here with you, or our marriage, dating wise. We've always talked wrestling. And like I said, it's always that branch. I always imagine a tree branch if I was to explain something about storylines. And you never want it to end. One end of a branch creates a new branch.
Yeah.
And everyone's connected somehow. And it's how you get there. But every branch is connected. Every wrestler's connected some way. It's kind of like how you know a person. You can look at a person, know them, they know someone, then you if you tracked it, you'd be surprised of who, you could possibly end up knowing.
Yeah.
Maybe you're 5 people away from a famous person. You never know. And that's what a branch is like. These wrestlers, how far away are they from that other wrestler? Now, you can create a new tree over here, but it's a lot more organic. It's fun, more fun to connect it on that same tree.
Yeah.
How do I get to that next branch? How do I connect these wrestlers? And that's how they did it here. CM Punk, he beats MJF. That could be seen as a big loss for MJF. But what are people thinking about? They're not really thinking about the loss.
No, they're thinking about what
Wardlow's going to do. And that's MJF's next thing. So when that guy loses, and it's especially more important for the loser of a big match like that to have that, where does he go now? Or where does she go now? Because I think it lessens the blow of the loss.
Yeah.
And the anticipation of what's next. So they did a great job there. After this match, there's another women's match. Again, it just so happens to be a women's match that they put on to bring it back down. Again, it has nothing to do with the women. It's just how they did the order.
Yeah.
Because it was another basic match. However, this one had the storyline.
Yeah.
I think that's why Cargill and Conti kind of fell a little flat for me.
Because there wasn't that big storyline.
Yeah, it just came out of nowhere. Like, here's my next contender. But this one, Thunder Rosa going for the title against Britt Baker. This is a long storied type of situation you're dealing with. The match, however, didn't live up to the expectations, and that may be because there's a rumor going around that Thunder Rosa is dealing with an injury.
Mm-hmm.
Usually a match like this, they're doing great. Now, we could also think that maybe they don't have the chemistry in a regular match because their best match was one of the crazy matches. And you'll find out on Dynamite, there's an even crazier match coming up. Well, not even a crazier, but a crazy match. And I think that's done on purpose because I think these two need that object, kind of like CM Punk and MJF. They need that type of stipulation. Britt Baker picks up the win here just because of interference from the outside. So, but I think this match, now that we watched Dynamite, was more of a, okay, let's have this match. She loses, and now let's go to this situation.
Yeah.
Because the first match didn't count. It was a non-sanctioned match. So I think they wanted to get Baker a win. So if she loses coming up on this March 17th show, that they're even.
Oh, okay.
Technically.
Yeah.
Even though Rosa would have 2 wins, but the one doesn't count. Technically. Then we had Moxley versus Bryan Danielson. A bloody match on this one. Moxley can bleed pretty good, just like Punk can.
Yes.
Hard-hitting match. A surprise finish as Moxley beats Bryan Danielson, as Danielson actually had him in a hold. And Moxley used the angles of his body, used the ropes to get the shoulders pinned down. They were about to go at it again. Then William Regal shows up.
Yes, I thought that was awesome.
Pleasant surprise. Slaps the crap out of both men.
Yes.
Makes them shake hands, gets them together. We'll see more of them on Dynamite. I could go more into this matchup, but it was a good match. It was a good match. I just can't remember a lot of the stuff that happened. Then we have the 6-man tornado tag. Darby Allin, the invincible Sammy Guevara, and Sting. Yeah. And Sting against Andrade, Matt Hardy, and Isaiah Cassidy. Right off the bat, when they named this match, if there's one thing that always kind of irks me, it was as a kid, it is as now. It goes all back to I have to collect them all. I don't like matches where people team up and then they have like one half of a legitimate tag team in it.
Yeah.
It bothers me. It tells me that team's going to lose. I can't remember the last time, and I could be wrong, I'm not even remembering right now, where there was like a 6-man tag and then one half of a legitimate tag team was in the match without his partner and they won. And I'm talking about like Isaiah Cassidy. Like, could we not
have his tag team?
But I think the problem is what's all Matt Hardy's guys? They're all tag teams.
Yeah.
So if he's teaming up with Andrade, you're going to get one half of some tag team.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It just bothered me. It's like Isaiah Cassidy. It's like,
yep.
I don't know. I mean, I would have rather made it an 8-man tag so we can get both of them in there. So anyways, Darby Allin, Sammy Guevara, and Sting, all of them do crazy moves. Sammy took out Isaiah with some sort of flip move off of the stage area. They land pretty hard. They're out. Sting dives through like 3 tables. I think it was onto Andrade.
It was.
And he's out. They're all out there. And then Darby, I think Darby picked up the win on Matt Hardy.
He did.
So, but yeah, not a surprise victory for them, just based off of who was in the match. It was a tornado match, so there was no tags. They were all over the place.
It was.
Butcher and the Blade came out to try to help. It really made that group look very weak.
Yeah.
Mark Quinn showed up. They had everybody out there, and they couldn't get the job done.
No, Sting was kicking their butts.
Yeah, no one beat Sting. But fantastic match. I really enjoyed it. I believe they did that to set up what was going to happen on Dynamite.
Mhm.
And then we get to the main event. By the time we got to the main event, I was like, there's nothing these guys could do.
Yeah.
And there wasn't. Paige and Cole was kind of like that. All right, now we're back to that basic match.
Yeah, I
And
think after the dog collar match, that was kind of like what ended it for me. I was like, they should have had that as one of their top matches.
that made it. They may have had that as the main event.
Like that should have been like the top one instead of the Cole and Page. So
Yeah, this match, and Moxley and Danielson did great, and the
oh
six man
yeah, they
tag.
did.
It was great, but like you said, it peaked.
Yeah.
It peaked, and it didn't end on that high note. It was kind of a
No.
weird thing. Kind of reminds me of WrestleMania 18 when they had Rock and Hogan go on, and they stole the show, and then Triple H and Jericho went. It was like a basic
Yeah.
wrestling match, and no one cared. I didn't even watch that thing. And then I watch it back a little bit, and I'm like, yeah, I could see why. Everybody was like,
Yeah.
That should have been like,
It's kind of hard when it peaks and then all of a sudden you're like, okay, that's it.
yeah.
It kind of just makes you like, oh, well, I could have done without that.
And there was WrestleMania 17 is a good example, but it's when you have a match like that that's built up so much and you know it's going to be good, you've got to have a loaded, named main event.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't have that. Page and Cole are top names of independence, things of that, but not generational.
Yeah.
At WrestleMania 17, you had the TLC match, Edge and Christian, Dudley's, Hardy's.
Yeah.
Greatest TLC match of all time. But it wasn't a letdown because it was Rock Austin at the end. Now, the finish for the match with Austin turning bad and all that weird stuff was kind of like, But Rock Austin was what you came to see.
Yeah.
And this pay-per-view, it was MJF and Punk that you came to see. And it was also MJF and Punk that was the highlight of it. They should have been main event.
Yes.
Page and Cole should have been at their position, maybe a little bit back, maybe at the 10, 11 spot.
Yeah.
There were 12 matches, so maybe at the 10 spot. And then it would allow them the freedom to maybe go out and put on a better performance of utilizing things. Possibly. Try to steal the show in the ring. They didn't have the name wise to pull at the end. And they didn't really do anything spectacular. Not to say it was a bad match, but after I just saw,
blood and guts, and then
and then you get this basic match. I mean, you go to Disney World and kid meets Mickey Mouse.
Well, I mean, it was just perfect, especially with Wardlow and his little thing. It made it great.
Yeah,
it was like finally he's turning on MJF.
Yeah, exactly. What I was saying was, you go to Disney World or wherever, you meet Mickey Mouse. You go somewhere, you meet Bugs Bunny, the top guy, and then Dale and what's the other chipmunk comes walking up.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, well, I already met my the top guy. That's what it was like. Chippendale.
Yeah, Chippendale.
Which again with Disney, what the heck? Like, did they name him that after the strip place? I never realized it. I've just heard about it. I never looked at it, but there's a lot of adult innuendos within Disney World.
I'm sure there is.
And now that I just think about Chip and Dale, the Rescue Rangers. But anyways, Hangman ends up hanging on to the title. There was some interference from Red Dragon, but he was able to thwart them off with the help of the Dark Order.
Yeah.
And then there was a little distinction between him and the Dark Order. He pushed one of the Dark Order members into Red Dragon, and that started a big brawl between them all. And so they kept kind of going back to that.
Yeah.
Where they're having that interaction where they're like, okay, Page and Dark Order may be on the outs, so maybe expect some Dark Order members to turn. I always thought Dark Order could split into two factions, good and bad.
It could be. You never know.
One that's with Page and one that's not for Page, and they kind of teased it in the beginning.
Yeah.
Ways back, where it was like half was for Page, half wasn't. Maybe they can revisit that. All right, so, but yeah, great pay-per-view. Then we go on to Dynamite, which happened the next night. Not the next night, happened on Wednesday.
Yeah.
This pay-per-view was on Sunday. If you're wondering what day we're recording this, on a Saturday night. So it's been almost 1 week since Revolution. There'll probably be a week when we post this. But Jericho comes out. He says all the right things about how he was kind of like a sore loser, and Eddie Kingston was right. Eddie Kingston comes out. They talk it over. They shake hands. And then 2.0 come out, one of your favorites.
I know.
And they attack him. But one thing I noticed is they threw Jericho to the ground, and he started holding his neck, because I forgot to mention on the Revolution, first match of the pay-per-view, or in the first move of the pay-per-view, Kingston throws Jericho over.
Oh, yes, I remember he hit
his head. Thinks, oh my God, he about broke his neck. Ironically, Big E breaks his neck last night on SmackDown.
Mm-hmm.
In the same type of fashion that Jericho kind of landed. So Jericho lands, and he's holding his neck because he's still sore from the pay-per-view, and they work Kingston over. Then Proud and Powerful come out, Santana Ortiz. They kind of clear the ring, and then they get one of the 2.0 members, and they're holding them, and they hand Jericho a weapon, and they're thinking, here you go, take your shot on him. And Jericho hits, I think it might have been Santana he hit, and then he hit Ortiz, and he turns. Jake Hager comes out, kind of like, what are you doing? What's going on? And what does he do? He clotheslines one of Proud and Powerful. And so that's the new faction.
Mm-hmm.
I believe it's called the Jericho, let me think what it was, Jericho Appreciation Society. I don't know. Jericho Appreciation Society. I don't know if that's going to wear on me or not.
We'll have to see.
It doesn't flow off the tongue as you would want it to. But that's this new group. It's him, the tag team of 2.0, Daniel Garcia.
I love their. God, I love it.
Yep. Daniel Garcia, who's usually with 2.0, and Jake Hager. So we'll have to see what two members join Kingston and Proud and Powerful. My first thought was, hey, let's bring the Briscoes in.
Yeah.
But I found out that there's a head honcho in TNT or whoever, TBS, I don't know, Warner Media or something.
Uh-huh. I
read that one of the Briscoes had a tweet back in 2013 that was like anti-gay. And that's the reason they have not shown up. That guy's like, no, I don't want him on there. But my thing is, one of his sons, I think tweeted the N-word or something like that back around that time, but he was a lot younger.
Yeah.
But they have no problem. I didn't see any discipline with him or nothing. So it's kind of weird how everybody picks and chooses. And then like Brian Kendrick was going to debut, and then he had a tweet. So key thing out there for all the professional wrestlers. Don't tweet anything. Just keep it professional.
Just keep off of social media.
Yeah. Don't tweet your true feelings. You know what I mean? Like,
which I've always think that's kind of like just I just don't want to know.
Yeah, but feel however you want to feel. I don't tell people how to feel.
Yeah.
If they don't like a certain people or they don't like this and that, that's you. Yeah. Whatever, I rather have the true you than have a bunch of fake people around.
Exactly.
Because there are a lot of fakes.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, But that's why the Briscoes haven't shown up. So my idea of, let's get the Briscoes, that ain't happening.
Huh?
That ain't happening. So, but expect to see them probably back at Ring of Honor because Tony Khan bought Ring of Honor.
Yeah.
So expect to see him or them there. So, anyways, but that was a great way to start the Dynamite show. And then we had a world title match. Out of nowhere, Dante Martin gets a title shot against Adam Page. So it was mainly, I think it was a culmination of what Dante Martin did while his brother was away.
Yeah.
It was almost like that was his reward because his brother's back.
Yeah.
So Darius came back a few weeks ago, and now they're top flight again. So I think that was, here, you did a great job. Page made him look good. Martin lost the match, but Page was like, hey, man, you did great. I'll see you again. So I think that was kind of like a reward because he's about to go back into that tag team division. Because they built him up great in the singles competition. So that was Dante's reward. And you got to see the world champion. The rankings of AEW confused me. I stopped doing my rankings because they were so different than AEW's. It's really based storyline-wise. There's no rhyme or reason for them. That top 5 changes drastically. If they want someone to get a title shot, kind of reminds me of the UFC.
Yeah.
They want to make a match look good. They'll move a guy up to like number 3, who was number 6, and he didn't do anything, just so they can say the number 3 contender. And that's what AEW does. So, and that's what they did here with Dante Martin. Afterwards, Adam Cole comes out and pretty much just continuing that feud. He talks about they're going to have a 6-man tag match. He makes you think that the Young Bucks are going to be teaming up with him against Page and whoever he chooses. And of course, you're thinking, he's going to pick Dark Order because that's who he usually picks. But we find out later on, both are not the case. So Bryan Danielson and Jon Moxley come out. They're with William Regal. He's their new manager. They beat another terrible name, the Work Horsemen, J.D. Drake and Anthony Henry. So J.D. Drake used to be with the Wingman. I don't know if he's with him anymore. And Anthony Henry, I don't know who that guy is. So it was like a jobber team. Can't you just be the workhorses? Why do we have to be the workhorsemen? There's already been the horsemen. I get what you're doing.
Yeah.
What about the workhorses? That's what people say when you work hard. He's a workhorse. He's a workhorseman. No, doesn't flow. So maybe be the workhorses. They dispatch these 2 individuals quickly. William Regal gets on the mic, has a heartfelt promo, really talks Bryan Danielson up.
Yeah.
Then he gets Jon Moxley and he's like, you're just crazy. He knows him for being crazy. Well, I've read after this that I guess William Regal went a little long. I guess the people in the crowd were saying there was a guy kind of telling him, hey, let's wrap it up. But he was flowing. It was good to me. But he might have took too long, which probably led to the next segments being rushed. And I felt it more during the Matt Hardy segment that we'll be getting to later on. But but it was great. He said either step up or you're going to get stepped on. It was thing. He kind of had a mention about he's not going to be here too much longer, meaning living.
Yeah.
So people are now thinking, does he have some sort of a medical thing or something like that? So we'll be finding out shortly if that's the case or not. Then we had Pac against Wheeler Yuta. Poor Wheeler Yuta. They just throw him out there just to get annihilated.
Yeah, I know.
And he did. Pac beats Wheeler Yuta. I don't think much happened afterwards.
Not really.
I can't remember if the House of Black talked or not. But I'm sure that's going to keep continuing. So we'll probably build up to a Phoenix return. But Adam Cole's backstage. We find out that he was going to pick Red Dragon. He's kind of mad. The Young Bucks weren't there for him. And the Young Bucks are pretty much like, hey, listen, anything to do with Adam Page, we're not involved in it. So obviously we're starting to see the Undisputed Era versus the Elite. which is going to end up happening. So maybe a fourth member joins Cole. Maybe it's Roderick Strong from WWE if they release him, or somebody new. And I'm sure when Kenny Omega gets back, he'll be the fourth one on the Elite.
Yeah.
FTR were backstage. It was weird. They fired Tully Blanchard out of nowhere. I don't know what's up with that. If they're dropping the ball with somebody, it's with FTR.
Yeah.
Those guys, like, they built them up as the best tag team, but they were getting handed to them in those battle royals. Like, they favor the Young Bucks and Red Dragon over them. So if I was FTR, I wouldn't be shocked if they would be leaving soon.
Yeah.
To be honest with you. Emergency board meeting for the AHFO. It's Matt Hardy and Andrade. Another Andrade. Do something better with it. But this is where I felt it was rushed. And I think it was rushed, and I also think somebody talk for Andrade.
Yeah.
Somebody talk for him. No one can understand what he's saying. And I'm not there to listen to Andrade. He's a great wrestler. Why do they have that guy stand next to him if he's not going to talk for him? That's why you're there.
Mm-hmm.
So Andrade talking, I have no clue. Matt Hardy is actually translating what he's saying, kind of like talking shit about himself. Like, he just said he wants me out. He just said, it's like, Lord, like Matt Hardy's like, yeah, I'm here. He wants to kick me out. It was like really rushed. Like, I don't want to be out. And these guys here behind me, they're not going to vote me out. And then they voted him out. And they start jumping him. Then there's Darby and Sting come out. And then they kind of get the better of Darby and Sting.
I know.
And then Jeff Hardy, who we expected to come, shows up. And it was
not really, I thought it was going to be more for me, but I was just like, that was it. It wasn't really the wow that I was expecting.
It might have been because we knew it was coming.
Probably.
Just
I think
it
was, it was kind of rushed. And I think if we would have not expected it, it might have been a little bit more organic, like you put it. It would have actually been better. But it was kind of like, oh, we know where he's coming out.
But like I said, I'm just going to be honest. I've said it here before. The Hardy Boys, they debut, and then you get used to them really quickly.
Yeah.
They're like the most awesomest thing that you kind of get bored of really quick. No matter where they go. That's how I feel. Like, they show up, and the moment that they show up, you're like, oh, wow.
Yeah.
And then next week, you're kind of, oh, there's the Hardys. I don't know if everybody else feels that way, but that's how I feel.
Well, from me being a Hardy Boy fan before, I just not impressed. I was kind of like, okay, and I'm done.
Especially, we were talking about that the other day. Their whole thing is being high flyers in that, and that can only take you so far, especially as you age.
Yeah, I don't see them being as high flying as what they were.
Maybe they'll surprise us, but I mean, it just kind of, I don't know, it just wears off so quickly that they debut and it's like, So this one wasn't even a good debut, so maybe it's different. Maybe bad debut, better sustainment of excitement for me. I'm not talking for anybody else, just for me. I'm sure everybody else is
we'll
like,
just have to see what they do.
And then Tony Schiavone interviews Swerve Strickland, who debuted on the pay-per-view, just talking. And Tony Nese interrupts him, and they're going to have a match on. Well, they already had the match. It was on whatever their other Rampage. And in case you're wondering who Swerve Strickland is, he used to be Killshot on Lucha Underground. I know he was with WWE. I didn't watch him there, but I used to love Lucha Underground. And a lot of these guys are from Lucha Underground. And he wore a mask there. A lot of wrestlers wore a mask there, but he was great. So expect some great matches from him. Wardlow does an interview, pretty much saying he's good, turned on MJF. And it was almost like he almost forgot to say something because he went, Tony, and then he was like, oh, and he remembered, and he said like 2-3 more lines, and then he was like, hey, Tony. So it was a good first interview for him. It was his longest interview he's did. The focus was on him. He did pretty good for his first time there. So yeah, he's done with MJF. He's a good guy. He came out of the good guy side. So QT Marshall back with Keith Lee ends up becoming a match for Rampage. He was trying to get Keith Lee to kind of team up with him against Taz's
Yeah.
group, but Keith Lee wasn't having it because he probably knows if he teams up with QT Marshall, he will lose. That's what QT Marshall does.
Okay.
Tag Team Championship match, Jurassic Express, and then the Acclaimed come out. And his raps have not been the same since he got in trouble.
No.
Man, that used to be the thing I looked forward to when the Acclaim were on the show. And I think this past show officially ended my excitement for the Acclaim.
Yeah.
That was their thing. It wasn't because of their wrestling. He came out, he rapped, and the other guy mimicked kind of what was going on, especially when he talked about Biden falling up the stairs.
Yeah.
And then Anthony Bowes was going up the stairs acting like he was falling. That was the best parts. Now he comes out, and I think they even had to block a part from the other week where he kind of talked about Putin. So they blocked that part out. Let him be him.
I know. That's what was
Let him be
special about
him.
it.
Yeah, he pushed the envelope.
You got to.
It wasn't that the words rhymed, it was what he was saying. Now he comes out, you got a dog, you sit by the log, drove home in the fog. Ooh, ouch, sick burn. Lord, let these guys be themselves. But Jurassic Express picked up the win, and then we find out that they are going to be the tag team partners for Adam Page. And Dark Order was kind of pissed about that.
Yeah, so, I know. I saw that.
So it's going to be him and the tag team champions against Adam Cole and Red Dragon. Then number one contender for the women's title, Thunder Rosa beat legit Layla Hirsch in a horrible match. That match was terrible. And I think because she's hurt.
Yeah.
They just didn't flow together. Then the main event, Sammy Guevara versus Scorpio Sky. Thought it was going to be a win for Sammy Guevara. So he does this move, and he flips and he goes through a table. And you thought he was really hurt. He did a great job of making you think that rib was hurt. They go to a commercial break. The whole time he's holding that rib.
Yeah.
They're thinking about ending the match. They're walking him back. And what does he do? The invincible Sammy Guevara. Nah, I'm going back in. I'm thinking, okay, great. I didn't mind it. I was like, okay, cool. He's going back in. He gets back in. Guess what's better?
His rib.
The rib. The guy hit him, was working the rib over. And, he kind of sold it like, a little bit. But it wasn't like you literally 10 seconds ago couldn't walk.
Yeah.
Now this guy is, and no one was messing with your rib at that time. You went through the table, your ribs broke or whatever. Now a guy is punching you in the part that's hurt. And you are more hurt on the outside than this guy punching you. How does that work?
Who knows? He's invincible.
How does that work?
Miracle healing.
I just don't. This dude annoys me in the ring.
Yeah.
Like I said, and I'll say it again. I watch his shows. I don't watch him anymore. They kind of lost
the edge.
Yeah. But he was a nice dude. I think, especially with the drama with his new girlfriend, with Tay Conti, because she was out there now with him and that. I think we're seeing, and I called it beforehand, we're seeing the example in front of our eyes of when someone becomes a little bit more famous.
Yeah.
They forget who came up with them. I'll tell you a story. Small town high school that I went to. So I wasn't good at basketball, but I played on the junior varsity and I didn't score many points and whatnot. And there was this girl that went to her school and she was really good. She was really good. And we would play basketball. The teams would kind of play together. She was really nice. We would play one-on-one. We would just have a good old time. You could talk to her. Never thought anything. I joined the military. I come back. She goes to Texas A&M. Going to play on the team. I see her at a gas station. I had heard like she went to Texas A&M. I go up to talk to her. She acts like she doesn't even know me.
Yeah.
I'm like, what the? I'm like, hey, it's me. Acts like she doesn't know me. It wasn't one of those. And I talked to like my buddy about it. I was like, hey, and she's like, yeah, she kind of changed where she acts like her poop don't stink. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think we're seeing that with Sammy Guevara. We're seeing it before our eyes.
Yeah.
He had that nice lady. He asked her to marry him on TV. He brought that on himself.
Yeah.
Then a month or so later, he plays off the rumors that him and Tay Conti, he jokes about, oh, yeah, we're not, whatever. Then it comes out he had dumped his lady and he's with her. That's fine. Whatever you want to do, I guess. But this the way he acts now, I'm expecting to see, hopefully he doesn't change the way he is, where he showed up at that kid's birthday party unannounced.
Yeah.
Hopefully he doesn't change that, but I have a feeling he will. You know how he would meet fans after the matches and stuff like that? I have a feeling he's not going to be doing that anymore as he starts getting higher and higher on the ranks. I just sense it. I can feel it. And I don't think it's, it's pro wrestling. It's part of his persona in that. No, I think that's going to be the real him. I think he's changing that way. So, but I see it here, and I see it in the match, is the invincibility, make sure he looks the part. He looks good. Because in the beginning, he was making everybody else look good. Now it's on him. But anyways, enough rants. I feel like I bashed Sammy Rob. I'm just pointing out what I see. But Scorpio Sky wins. He wins. So pleasant surprise there. So Scorpio Sky gets his singles run and beats Sammy Guevara, even though he needed everybody in the world to do so, including Paige Van Zant, who showed up and beat up Tay Conti. But yeah, so that was the Dynamite review there. And then on Rampage, not much happened. Swerve looked good in his match and won. Keith Lee won his match and then got beat down. He beat QT Marshall and he got beat down by Powerhouse Hobbs.
Okay.
So that was a good thing. And then I can't really remember the other matches that were on there, but
was not been
yeah, I mean, I think there was a big match to start the show off, but we'll take a little break here. I'll look it up just so I'm not rambling here. All right, so the match was Darby Allin. He beats Isaiah Cassidy. I didn't watch that. I caught the end where the Hardys must have came out and were dancing. So they must have came in and saved them, looking like the Hardy Boys. And then Jamie Hayter beat Mercedes Martinez.
Okay.
So it was a women's match, kind of just going into the feud for Thunder Rosa. She came out and saved her. But Thunder Rosa is going to be fighting Britt Baker in a steel cage match. So that's the match I alluded to before, where I talked about they needed something other than a basic match. So there we go. So that's us caught up on AEW. So I think what I'll do right now, I'll just head right into my top 12 NBA players of all time.
Okay.
Now, I had made a slideshow. I was going to do this whole extravagant thing. And I'm not going to do that. I'm not even going to read off my slideshow. But my top 12 may be different than a lot of others. I've watched other people's top. The reason I do top 12 is because it seems to be the same 12 players. And yes, did that affect kind of my thinking too? I'm like, okay, if a majority of people are thinking this, and I kind of think it too, so we'll go with that 12. Because once you get past 12 through whatever, it can be anybody.
Yeah.
And my number 12, I've gone back and forth. I've raised them up. I raised them down. I even flip-flopped them with 11. But for now, until I kind of think back, because I watched his whole career, before I say his name, I'm not judging this off of him being well known. If it's off well known, he's top 2, top 3. I'm basing this off of basketball, of what I've seen, what I've read, because there's a lot of guys I did not see, obviously, they're on my list, but kind of like read, and I'm sure he's higher on a lot of people's list. He's higher on a lot of people that play basketball, NBA's list. So who am I? But for me personally, number 12 is Kobe Bryant. He is the number 2 shooting guard of all time. He is pretty much a mimic of Michael Jordan. But why is he number 12 compared to my number 11, which is Shaq? So 11 is Shaq and 12 is Kobe. And reason they're 11, 12, I have Shaq over Kobe based off of potential. Mm-hmm. Meaning, not obviously they're both retired, but Shaq could have been a top 5 player. Could have been the best center of all time.
Yeah.
The Kobe and Shaq are completely different because Kobe put everything into it. That was the best version of Kobe Bryant that you could ever see. Shaq was lazy. He had the God-gifted talent. He had the body.
Yeah.
And because he had that, things came easy to him. Kobe had the work. Kobe had the work. Now, if it was based off of hard work in there, Kobe Bryant, top 2, maybe top player of all time.
Yeah.
Off of trying and hard. You got to respect that. Reason they're so low compared to other people is because of their egos. Mm-hmm. I think when I think of a player, I encompass everything. And their egos got in the way of them winning championships. They had to be the top dog. They had to fight. They split. They had 3 titles in a row, and then they split. And so that's part of it. I mean, you want to be the best player. There's sacrifice. There's putting your ego to the side to be the champions. Now, they always talk about, we'll do whatever it takes to be a champion. And I don't think that was the case. Yeah. Because they couldn't get along to be the champions. Why do I have Shaq in front of Kobe? Like I said, naturally gifted. When they were on the team together, I felt Shaq was a little bit better player just off of him being bigger. Now, Shaq's number 11 because I think he is a little overrated as well. Now, in the 90s, he was the young up-and-comer playing these legendary centers. Yeah. Hakeem, Patrick Ewing, David Robinson. 90s had a lot of great centers. Shaq was one of them, but he was not the top one. Hakeem worked him. David Robinson would battle him. Shaq was better than David Robinson and Patrick Ewing even back then. But Hakeem is the one I'm looking at. Yeah. He kind of worked. Now, Shaq put up numbers against him. Shaq did great against him. But I think Hakeem showed the weakness of Shaq. And the reason that I say he's overrated is because if you look at the centers from 2000 to 2003, a lot of those veterans that were in the 90s that gave them problems were a lot older or retired. And the young centers like Dwight Howard, it was almost like he was the last true center. Yeah. Hadn't shown up in the league yet. So he was battling people like Brad Miller and Vlade Divac. If you look at everybody's center, there was no competition for Shaq. So he looked great against legends, but now let's put him against, and I'm going to call them scrubs, and they're no scrubs because they're in the NBA. Yeah. But compared to Shaq, scrubs. Yeah. Which inflated how well he did. I used to watch those Lakers. He would elbow people in the face, and they call a foul on the person for his face hitting his elbow. You know what I mean? Now, the 2000s were the decade of the power forwards. He had to compete against Duncan and Garnett, Nowitzki, but they were not centers. They were power forwards. So sometimes they would have to guard him. And, it wasn't a true matchup of centers is what I'm getting at. So it was almost like he was right up there with those legends in the 90s. And then he was so young that he proceeded on into the 2000s. And that's where the center position was dying off. Mm-hmm. It started back then. So he took advantage of that, which he should have. but I think it's a little inflated of how we see how dominant he was
Yeah.
with that competition in that era. Because then my Pistons, they spanked that butt in 2004 with Ben Wallace, a 6'9", we'll say center. That's what he played.
Yeah.
And he held his own. Shaq put up some numbers, but he held his own
Yeah.
pretty good against Shaq. That Detroit team was all defense there. But again, we're talking top 12, so it's not like I'm dogging Shaq and Kobe. They're in my top 12 players. There's a lot of players that aren't. There's a lot of players I like better than them that are not in my top 12. It's based off of the court and also full encompass of a person. Number 10, I have Tim Duncan. They consider him the greatest power forward of all time. I do not, because I have a person that's in front of him that I actually consider a power forward, even though a lot of people call him a center because he played center. I mentioned him earlier. But Tim Duncan, the consistency of Duncan, and then the key thing is the sacrifice, the unselfishness of Tim Duncan. Every time he played, his team made the playoffs. He had a great coach. He had some great teammates. But it all started with Tim Duncan.
What team was he on?
The Spurs.
Okay.
We actually went and saw him, when we lived in San Antonio.
Well, I think I went. Well, you know what? The only game I went to, we were so high up, so
yeah.
And at that time, I don't think I had my glasses on, so I could.
Well, you don't watch, but it's just funny. It's funny. It's like one of the greatest players of all time. We actually went there.
I mean, at least I.
But you enjoyed yourself there. You just didn't know who the heck the players were because you don't keep up with NBA.
Yeah, not at that time.
Yeah, he played for the Spurs, so the Spurs were always winning. And living in San Antonio, it's all about Spurs.
Yeah.
But Tim Duncan was the key to that, and the consistency.
Was this the guy that you were really raving about that time?
No, that's Kawhi Leonard.
Okay.
Well, I never got to see Kawhi Leonard. We left when he was right before he started playing.
No, but there was
George Hill.
There was someone on the Spurs team that you were really.
I like George Hill.
That we saw.
I like George Hill.
So
he was a point guard at that time. He was pretty young, but I was big into fantasy sports. But yeah, I like George Hill. I'll tell you a story about Kawhi Leonard. So I'm in the last deployment I'm on. I joined this one league just to pass the time. I would check it after work or whatever. Well, then I get put into a place where we're not going to have any type of internet. You know, we're going secret location, whatever. Not like it's like a top dog, but let's just say I went somewhere where there wasn't much crap.
Yeah.
So I did this draft prior to me knowing I was going there. And it was a draft where they said, hey, we have this list of a ranking. When you join the league, tell us the name of the player you want on your team, and whoever has the lowest number in the ranking, you'll pick first or whatever.
Yeah.
So great strategy for me. I look and they got Kawhi Leonard down in like the 200s. So I was like, and this was prior. I think this was prior to his NBA Finals against LeBron the first time. So this was 2013. But I'm like, man, I see a lot in Kawhi Leonard. So I was like, I'll pick Kawhi Leonard up, and then I'll have a top pick in that second round. So I picked Kawhi Leonard, and right away the guys are like, what? I mean, he ain't going to be that. I see why you're doing it, but he ain't going to be anything. You know, they were just giving me crap. Second round, I have like the third pick, which means somebody chose lower to me. But they seemed to jump on me about Kawhi Leonard, but no one got jumped on for someone getting picked even lower. Then they gave me suggestions of who I should pick. I was like, no, I'm picking Kawhi Leonard. Second round, I picked Paul George. This is a dynasty draft, so I'm picking some young dudes. In a dynasty draft, pick you some young guys, some up-and-comers that are about to spring forward.
Yeah.
That's how I've won leagues before. You're looking at the guy that had Ronald Acuna Jr., Vlad Guerrero Jr., and Juan Soto before Juan Soto even jumped up in a baseball league. I've retired since then, but give me a dynasty. I'm going to show you how to work it. So they tell me I ruined the league.
I remember
that. This job's terrible. And then I'm like, well, hey guys, I'm actually deployed. I have to go to a location. I don't think I'll be able to do this league. Oh yeah, look at you, ruined the league, and now you're leaving. I want to meet those guys. So somehow, some way, if someone hears
Well, what it is you were actually probably picking people
no,
and setting it up.
I'm telling you, it's not that I'm tooting my own horn. It's the same thing with that baseball league. I can see some talent.
Yeah.
I can see talent. It's just it didn't go along with what they wanted. You know what I mean? Oh, I want this and that. I see in the future. You give me a dynasty. Wasn't a 1-year league. It was a dynasty. It means I get to keep these guys for a long time.
Yeah.
I'm looking 4 or 5 years ahead. I've seen a lot in Kawhi Leonard. I've seen a lot in Paul George. Paul George was more well known than Kawhi Leonard. But I picked Leonard first so I could get a higher draft pick.
Yeah.
To get George then. I mean, I could have picked George first, and then maybe Leonard, but I mean, I didn't know I was picking George in the second round, but he was still there. You know what I mean? But,
yeah.
So I wanted to have a higher second round pick. So that's why I picked him. But anyways, that's my thing. I used to be really big into fantasy sports and that. But Tim Duncan, number 10. I have number 9. I have Bill Russell. The reason I have Bill Russell in front of Tim Duncan is because championships to playoff contentions. Now, a lot of people argue Bill Russell played in a league where there was only 10 teams, and he had the best team of them all, which is all true. But I figured if you took 10 teams right now in the NBA and cut all the other players, and then those players would have to join those 10 teams, all those 10 teams would be pretty good. So that's the way I look at it is, yeah, you might only have 10 teams in the league, but you're getting the best players, so they're loaded. And he can't help he was on the best team. And he was kind of the leader. So I think sometimes he is overrated, and then sometimes I think he's not given enough credit. So number 9 is a nice spot where I have him at. At number 8, I have Oscar Robertson, just because he did everything. He was a point guard / shooting guard. Do I think he's the second best point guard of all time? I don't know. Isaiah Thomas has something to say about that. And I'm a big Steve Nash fan as well. But as a player, Oscar Robertson would rebound, assist, and score a lot of points. I believe he was 6'5". So doing that at that time was pretty impressive with those numbers. Now, there are other players now that get those triple doubles, and a lot of them go out of their way to get the triple doubles. And I feel like back in the day, scoring and assisting and rebound, like those stats weren't really, since it was such a new game, wasn't really that important to them. They're just trying to win. So I think organically he had those triple doubles more than someone throwing up a shot and getting their own rebound just to get the 10th rebound. So that's why I have him up. At number 7, I have Hakeem Olajuwon, who I consider the best power forward all time. And he's also obviously a top 3 center. He had the movements. He had the outside shot, not necessarily 3, but I'm sure if the 3-pointer, if centers were shooting 3s back then, Hakeem Olajuwon would have been able to do it. Because it was a different time of type of play. Centers were down low.
Yeah.
More of a post play. You would shoot the 2 more than 3. Lord knows I was yelled at so many times for shooting 3s when I played basketball instead of the 2. I was before my time as well. Got the whole team pulled off the court because I shot a 3 on a fast break with one of my good buddies underneath, wide open for a 2-point shot, and I decided to pull up. I was just shooting my 3s. But anyways, Hakeem Olajuwon, I think he's the best power forward because he played power forward when he first joined the league with Ralph Sampson. So they had the Twin Towers, they called them, in Houston. And just the way he dominated Shaq. The only person ever got Hakeem is Kareem. And I've gone back and forth on this number 6. I thought about moving Kareem there, but I got LeBron at 6.
Okay.
I know people are going to say, "Oh, wow, that's too low." You know, I consider him the number 1 player, the number 2 player. And I guess I'll sound like an old style guy, but I feel like the missing of centers of true dominant inside presence
Mm-hmm.
has allowed physical players like LeBron James
Mm-hmm.
to be even more dominant.
Mm-hmm.
Now, LeBron would hang with anyone. I'm not saying he's a bad player. I'm just saying I feel like if we look at his stats, if we look at how he played, and he carried those Cleveland Cavalier teams in the 2000s, but he didn't have as much success in the playoffs. He did make it to the playoffs and lose to the Spurs or the finals, but he didn't have as much success in the playoffs during that time. He would lose to teams that he was supposed to beat, but he was a one-man show in Cleveland. But the big difference was there were those old school power forwards of Kevin Garnett, Tim Duncan. There was Dwight Howard, a legitimate center, an old school style center.
Yeah.
So there was more presence of that physicality of a larger opponent within the box down low. And I feel like basketball changed in 2015. That's why you don't see Kevin Durant, Steph Curry on my list. Because I feel it's changed so much because of the positions. I know the game changed from the 60s to the 70s and 80s with the 3-point line and rules in it. But what I'm talking about is you're literally eliminating a position, and that's the center position. Every team, like even Joel Embiid and Nikola Jokic, they're listed as centers, but they play more as a stretch power forward. So you pretty much have a power forward at center, you have a small forward at power forward, and then you usually run 3 guards. Is if you break down what a player would be, that's what most teams play.
Yeah.
And they play the 5 out. There's no contest of rebounds anymore. If you ever watched the Celtics play the Lakers and that, you would see Larry Bird, Magic Johnson get in there, get position, get rebounds. You don't see it anymore. You see, and I looked up box scores, and there's very little assist on a lot of plays because they will go down the court and play one-on-one ball or spread everybody out, and it's pretty much shoot a 3 and then already head back on defense. There's no attempts of offensive rebounding.
Yeah.
So I think it's just a little style game. So if I do my top 12 of them, it would be from 2015 on. It just changed so much, and I don't think LeBron would get to the basket as easily as he does with the physical. If Shaq was down low in his prime, if David Robinson was there, things like that other players had to contend with. So nothing against LeBron. He's actually in the top 12. He's the only current one that's in.
Yeah.
So that says a lot about his talents. But I can't put him at the top just based off of that. You've taken away his biggest threat.
Yeah.
He's a physical man. He's the dominant man on the court now. And he's a 6'8", 6'9" small forward is what he's legitimately is. And no 6'9", 6'8" small forward would be the biggest man if you go back just into the 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah.
Is how I'm looking at it. He would still do good because he's LeBron James, but I don't think he would be as that dominant force as he is. So I positioned him as number 6 in my head of what he would be in that spot.
Yeah.
Titles, championship appearances, just his big name. Yeah, I could see why people put him at 1 and 2. But when I think of him in that position with those other players, because I'm incorporating them all on the court together. That's how I'm saying they're playing together. I don't think he would be as down. Number 5, I have Kareem. I think Kareem a lot of times is underrated, but I think a lot of times is overrated. And what I mean by that is he came on the scene, he got Oscar Robertson, he wins a title. And then he struggled to carry that team the rest of the way. He would get MVPs and they would miss playoffs. And then he would go to the Lakers and he kind of struggled. And I feel like Magic Johnson saved his career.
Yeah.
It's not saying Kareem was a bad player. He just was missing that piece, that point guard that he needed. But because of that, because he was in need of that piece, I have him listed as 5, and I actually have Magic Johnson at number 4 because of what he did for Kareem. And then after Kareem retired, Magic Johnson took that same team without Kareem back to the finals. So in my mind, that's what separated them. Kareem had a longevity, played a very long time, was a leading scorer. I'm sure LeBron's going to be passing him of all time. But and a lot of these old players, they didn't have the 3-point line, so them scoring that many points without even being able to shoot the three, is good on them. So, but yeah, so I got Kareem at 5 and Magic Johnson at 4 because he came on the scene. He's what you see today, a 6'9" guard, a big man that can handle the ball. He was before his time. He's what all these players are right now. He's Kevin Durant, LeBron James, all these players that are tall, big, that can handle the ball. Magic Johnson started. And the big thing is in the 1980 finals, he actually took Kareem's place. Kareem was hurt, and he played center, and they won the championship on that game that he played center. He just went all out. So, I mean, he's the quintessential player. If I put them on the court, he's my man running the point. Magic Johnson. Number 3, I have Larry Bird. Why do I have Larry Bird? You might be saying, oh, there's a white guy. Listing the white guy up at number 3. But I legitimately think Larry Bird is a top 3 player.
Yeah.
Because look at the effort, the passing ability. It wasn't because he was athletic. And of course, a lot of times when you're white, you get the deceptively athletic, context. But he just was a regular dude. But the reason I put him on there, shooting. He was Magic Johnson, but he could shoot. That's what Larry Bird was. Larry Bird was a great passer. Why do I have him ahead of LeBron? Passing. LeBron makes passes, but I don't know. I watched the game, and the effort level of Magic Johnson and Larry Bird is why I have them ahead of LeBron. Not to say LeBron doesn't try in it, but I didn't see them ever take it. Just watching those matchups. The effort they put in. I can watch those games all day long. I can't watch a game today. I can't watch it keep me captivated. Just the little things they did. It was very entertaining. Entertaining ball. So that's why I have Larry Bird at number 3. Because then I'm thinking Larry Bird and Magic Johnson in today's game on the court with all these players. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
I mean, they had to battle a lot of people. And now, if you want Larry Bird to stand in the corner and shoot threes, he's going to make them.
Yeah.
You want Magic Johnson to penetrate and kick the ball out? Yeah, he's going to do that. Just what you see today. And I think that's why they're top 4.
Yeah.
Number 2, this is going to be a shocker to you, to everybody. I have Michael Jordan at number 2. And who's number 1? I have Wilt Chamberlain at number 1. Now, you might ask yourself, what are you thinking? A lot of people might have Wilt out of the top 10. And I base it off of God's gift.
Yeah.
It's almost like a Shaq and Kobe comparison. Hard worker, Michael Jordan. Greatest basketball player I've ever watched, Michael Jordan. I didn't watch Wilt. I've seen clips, but my dad has passed, but we would talk, and he loved Wilt. And he watched Wilt, and he watched Michael, and he watched Kobe. And Wilt, just the way he was built, the natural gift. It's almost like when Michael Jordan was playing, he had a purpose. He had a mission. In the 80s, it's almost the same as LeBron. In the 2000s, LeBron struggled, and then he blossomed in the 2010s. In the 80s, Michael Jordan was leading that team. They were struggling to get past teams. In the 90s, they blossomed. It's just Michael Jordan is a different, I would say, type of player. Just the hunger he has to improve.
Yeah.
There was never a letdown for him. He just continued on. And why do I have number 1 for Wilt? At the time he was playing, there weren't any really records. There was nothing to play for. You know what I mean? There was a championship. He couldn't get past the Boston Celtics, that loaded team. And a lot of people argue with that. And that's true. But I don't think Wilt put enough effort in. It was almost like the Shaq thing.
Yeah.
But Wilt was better than Shaq based off of pure talent, God gifted. And I just feel like he didn't play his hardest.
Yeah.
I felt like he just took it off. Just like, like I could do this, but I'm not going to. He led the league in passing. He could do what I'm saying is it was so easy for him. He could do whatever he wanted, and he was kind of bored of it.
Yeah.
So if you're that type of player against everybody else that's trying so hard, and you're like, I'm just gonna whatever. I don't feel like dominating today or whatever.
Yeah.
To be able to control that, to me, makes you the best player of all time.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you don't have the stats, which he did. Maybe you don't have the titles, which he didn't. He had 2 of them. But I just feel like at that era, maybe if he had a goal-oriented mind, would have been unstoppable. If he was chasing someone. But he was the guy everybody was chasing.
Yeah.
So that's why he's my number 1. So I'm going to go with Wilt.
Pretty good team up.
Yeah, that's the top 12. I mean, if they were a team, no one would ever beat them. They would be my team to go against the Monstars.
Yeah.
But yeah, no disrespect to any of those players. This is how I view it. And I'm not having Wilt in front of Michael just because, oh, wow, he wants to be different. No, I legitimately, if I break it down like that, you got the best version of Michael Jordan. That was the best.
Yeah.
He gave it all. Wilt didn't even give it all. Like, what could he have been, But he was so good, he's still number 1 from what he did.
Yeah.
Like, I can't imagine if he was even tried, To me, he didn't try as hard as he could have.
Yeah.
Which could be a downfall, but still, I'm going with Wilt. All right, so we still got time on this portion here. All right, well, let's take a little break, and then I'll come back with my Wrestlemania mashups. All right, Wrestlemania mashup. So again, here's the premise. I have to make 12 matches involving 3 Wrestlemanias that were consecutive. I can't use the same wrestler twice. I can't use the same title twice. So you're not looking at the best matches of all 3, but you're looking at the best show you could put on with those restrictions. Because it would be easy for me just to list off the top 12 matches in history. But... All right, so WrestleMania 1, 2, and 3. My first match to start the show off is the Foreign Connection, which is the Iron Sheik and Nikolai Volkov, defending their tag team titles against the U.S. Express, Mike Rotundo and Barry Windham. So I picked this because I believe the U.S. Express, this was from WrestleMania 1. They ended up picking up the victory and picking up the title. So I think starting off with a big good guy victory will get the crowd happy. So I chose this tag team title match because I didn't want to. The WrestleMania 3 didn't have a tag team title defense. And then WrestleMania 2 had the Dream Team against the British Bulldogs.
Mm-hmm.
And I found myself kind of struggling to make 12 matches, so I needed to break that up, and it left me with this match, even though I might have preferred the Bulldogs in the Dream Team if you would have asked me which tag match.
Yeah.
But I had to go here because I couldn't use Bulldogs twice. Number 2, from WrestleMania 3, I chose Hercules and Billy Jack Haynes. Pretty much a filler match. This ended with a double countout. So I feel like you go off with a big good guy victory, you can get away with a double countout here from WrestleMania 3 with Billy Jack Haynes and Hercules, 2 big men. The Battle of the Full Nelson was the storyline going along with them. Pretty much who could slap on the Full Nelson to defeat the other. And coincidentally, it was the number 2 match at WrestleMania 3 as well. The number 3 match, I'm going to go again, WrestleMania 3. It might be a lot from that. It was a great pay-per-view. King Kong Bundy and his 2 little friends against Hillbilly Jim and his 2 little friend matchup. Now, back then they called them midgets, which is not the proper term to use today, so they call them little people. But Hillbilly Jim had the Haiti Kid in Little Beaver. And I believe the Haiti Kid ended up being the shorter Mr. T. They played him as Mr. T's shorter guy, or I think he actually took that persona on. And then King Kong Bundy had Little Tokyo and Little Brook. Now the thing about these are legendary little wrestlers. So, not to be disrespectful to them, they were the top of the line that you can get, even though this was kind of supposed to be a funny matchup or a gimmick matchup. And this ended up with a disqualification. I believe Hillbilly Jim's team won.
Yeah.
King Kong Bundy dropped an elbow on one of the little guys, and then the little guys on his team turned on him and left the crowd happy and sad at the same time. Number 4, another WrestleMania 3 matchup, the Junkyard Dog versus Harley Race. I did think about having JYD go for the IC title, but you'll find out later on why I didn't do that. And I wanted to get Harley Race on the show. I also tried to get Terry Funk on the show because him and Hoss Funk, or Dory Funk Jr., his brother, wrestled Junkyard Dog and Tito Santana in a tag team match at WrestleMania 2. But just because I needed 12 matches, if I threw all them together, that would have really threw a lot of the other matches off. I might not have had enough. So I had to choose JYD and Harley Race. Harley Race, surprisingly, wins this match. And the stipulation was the dog had to bow, which he kind of curtsied. And then he took the crown in Harley Race's little robe because he was the king of wrestling and left on a high note. JYD again, favorite wrestler of all time. Don Morocco and Paul Orndorff at the number 5 spot. This is a WrestleMania 2 matchup. This kicked off the show. WrestleMania 2.
WrestleMania 3. Huh?
Yeah, well, Orndorff was not on WrestleMania 3. He was actually on the standby in case the Andre Hulk Hogan match fell through.
Yeah.
Because he had a feud with Hulk Hogan. So I was always surprised he wasn't on the event. But he was on WrestleMania 2 as a good guy. That one ended in a double countout as well. So because of that, I wanted to space him and the Hercules match a little bit, give you a little bit of space so it's not 2 double countouts in a row. Number 6, WrestleMania 2 matchup. Mr. T and Roddy Piper in a boxing match.
Oh, that was good.
Yeah, it was funny. It was disqualification. I wanted to get Mr. T on there. I wanted to get Roddy Piper on there. I thought about doing the WrestleMania 1 main event because of that, but I found a way to get all those guys on the card without having to do that and get the main event that I wanted. Number 7, I have the Dream Team versus the Fabulous Rougeaus. I talked about this matchup before. This is the one where Bruce Beefcake, they kind of turned on him. Later on, he would become the Barber from WrestleMania 3. So through this tag team match in, I like to kind of space my tag team matches apart as well. Honky Tonk Man versus Jake Roberts at the number 8 spot for WrestleMania 3. 2 top names, get them on the card. To get Roberts on the card, I was either choosing George Wells, some jobber guy that I think he was Master G from Mid-South. He was actually the guy when Junkyard Dog went to the WWF. They tried to push him as the new Junkyard Dog in the Mid-South region. It didn't work out, so he ended up becoming a jobber at WrestleMania 2 to Jake the Snake Roberts. But I chose Honky Tonk Man. I felt like the name power there was a little bit more than George Wells.
Yeah.
And we got to see Alice Cooper, who came out with Honky Tonk Man. Then the IC title match. Randy Savage, Ricky Steamboat. No question. That was like the first one I wrote on there. I was like, this
pretty good.
It was considered the greatest match of all time.
Oh, wow.
So it's going to be on there. You want to put on a WrestleMania show in this WrestleMania mashup, you got to have them on there.
Yeah.
from WrestleMania 3. The number 10 spot, I have, if I can even read my writing, the Hart Foundation and Danny Davis versus the British Bulldogs and Tito Santana from WrestleMania 3. Got everybody I needed on there. I wanted to get the Harts on there. They were the tag champions, but this is the caveat. They didn't defend the titles.
Okay.
So that's why I could throw them on there, because it was a 6-man tag match. I couldn't get them on because WrestleMania 2, they were in the Battle Royal with Andre, Big John Studd, and a bunch of football players.
Yeah.
And was a lot of wrestlers in there. It would, if I would have put that Battle Royal on there, I would have not been able to do this.
Yeah.
I wanted to get Big John Studd on this matchup, but his only other WrestleMania matches were against Andre, who obviously you know what the main event's going to be.
Yeah.
And then he was in the Battle Royal, so I couldn't get Big John Studd in there. But very underrated, one of my favorite wrestlers, favorite bad guys, because of the mystery. I didn't really get to see him a lot.
Yeah.
Was Big John Studd. But number 10 was the Harts and Danny Davis against British Bulldog and Tito Santana. Number 11, Wendy Richter and Leilani Kai for the women's title from WrestleMania 1.
Okay.
So I wanted to get a women's match on there. It was actually right before the main event on WrestleMania 1, so I wanted the ladies to represent in this mashup. Because after this, there were not many women wrestling matches in the 90s until the late 90s, mid 90s. So there was a big gap where women wrestling wasn't even happening in the WWF. And then, of course, the main event from WrestleMania 3, Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant. So you had to go there. So WrestleMania 3 dominated that first mashup.
Yeah, I think
it was
so.
the better pay-per-view. And I'll do one more so I don't bore everybody. I'll space these out. Wow, I'm losing my my voice here. So bear with me. Number 1 match for WrestleMania 4, WrestleMania 5, and WrestleMania 6 mashup. Brutus the Barber Beefcake versus Mr. Perfect at WrestleMania 6. Wow.
I did. Long pause there for me.
I was like, I'm drinking water. I'm looking at Ashley like, help me out.
I don't know why I would have contributed to that little part.
I would have took a wow.
Wow.
But yeah, so from WrestleMania 6, this was actually Mr. Perfect's first loss in the WWF. So we start to show off with Beefcake winning. Number 2, I would have the Twin Towers versus the Rockers from WrestleMania 5. Twin Towers go over on them.
Yeah.
They win, but you get to see Big Boss Man and Hakeem. You get to see a young Shawn Michaels and Marty Jannetty. So I really like that matchup. It's actually a great small man versus big man matchup. Number 3 from WrestleMania 6, I have the Earthquake versus Hercules. Earthquake squashes Hercules in this one, literally. Number 4, I have the tag team title match from WrestleMania 6. Demolition defending against Andre the Giant and Haku. This was Andre's last match in the WWF. Wasn't the last time we saw him. He ends up turning good at the end. So Demolition win the tag titles from Andre and Haku. Number 5, I got Jim Duggan and Dino Bravo. I believe Jim Duggan wins this one, but the Earthquake comes in and squashes Duggan with his Earthquake sit-down maneuver. So that's why I spread it. I had Earthquake and Hercules earlier on.
Yeah.
And then he comes out because they were really pushing Earthquake. You could tell they were wanting him to go on to bigger things, and that bigger things ended up being Hulk Hogan that year.
Okay.
So I kind of kept that same storyline going because, let's see, on WrestleMania 6, Earthquake's match was number 4, and Jim Duggan's match was number 11. So it gave you time to kind of forget about it, and there's the Earthquake again. So it was a great way to keep them noticeable throughout the show. But on my show, I have him doing that to Duggan at the number 5 spot. Number 6, this was the last match I put on here. I was struggling. It's the Bushwhackers versus the Rougeaus. And I thought, hey, let me get the Bushwhackers in on here. You know, we just saw Jim Duggan get squashed. Let's get the crowd excited for a Bushwhacker win over the Rougeaus. What did I say? I think that was WrestleMania 5. I believe that's when the Bushwhackers fought the Rougeaus. If I said 6, I was mistaken. It was 5. WrestleMania 5. Number 7, I have from WrestleMania 6. You hear that a lot. You could tell which WrestleMania was like deeper. The Bad News Brown versus Roddy Piper. This was to get Roddy Piper on there because he had retired at WrestleMania 3.
Okay.
So this was the only match I could have of his. And it was the one where he had painted himself half black.
Okay.
So obviously, if he would have done that today, half of him would have been canceled. So, number 8, the Brainbusters versus Strike Force from WrestleMania 5. I like this match. I wanted to get Arn and Tully on here. They were the 4 horsemen. They came over. They were the Brainbusters in WWF, the Horsemen in WCW or NWA.
Yeah.
And this was their only WrestleMania match, so I had to get them on here. And I had to get them on here with Strike Force, which was Rick Martel and Tito Santana. Big storyline here. This was the matchup where Rick Martel turned on Tito, and he would soon become the model. So that would have been exciting to see. Number 9, the Ultimate Warrior versus Ravishing Rick Rude. Now, I know a lot of you were probably thinking, hey, he's going to choose Hogan and Warrior as the main event. I was tempted, but I wanted to get these other matches in here. Now, after I say what the main event ends up being, I'll talk about my thought process and what I could have done alternatively. But this was an IC title match with Warrior and Rude. Number 10, I have the Hart Foundation versus Rhythm and Blues from WrestleMania 5. Rhythm and Blues is Honky Tonk Man and Greg the Hammer Valentine. Number 11, I had Ted DiBiase and Jake Roberts right before the main event. It was a big storyline going on for them, and I think they needed to have, I would have them as the co-main event.
Yeah.
Right beforehand. So the Rude actually ended up winning the IC title with Bobby the Brain Heenan holding Warrior's foot. The Hearts beat Rhythm and Blues, and then Jake the Snake Roberts got his vengeance on Ted DiBiase at WrestleMania 6. And, of course, the main event by... actually, Ted DiBiase beat Jake Roberts by countout, but he was able to deliver the DDT to Virgil. My mistake. Hulk Hogan and Randy Savage from WrestleMania 5. The Mega Powers explode.
Yeah.
If you ever watched WrestleMania 5's entrance with Vince McMahon, it's like, the Mega Powers explode. It's WrestleMania. So WrestleMania 5 and WrestleMania 6, great entrances.
Yeah.
The WrestleMania 6 one's like, throughout the galaxy, among the stars, you know, Hulk Hogan in the Ultimate Warrior.
Yeah.
You know, title for title, you know. And everything was about, I think they even says they're about to explode too.
I think
like
so.
Everybody was about to explode. It was just like bodily combustions. But so you're sitting there thinking, why didn't you do Hogan and Warrior? So what I could have done was I could have done Rude versus Jimmy Snuka. Yeah. Got Jimmy Snuka on there. I could have done Savage and Sensational Sherry versus Dusty Rhodes and Sweet Sapphire.
Yeah.
And then I could have done Hogan and Warrior because it was title for title. But I went this direction because I liked the Hogan Savage match more and the Warrior Rude match more than I liked the Savage Dusty match. So that was the big thing. Yeah, I could have got Dusty on there. And you could argue, you know, and then the Rude and Snuka was a glorified squash match for Rude beating Snuka. Mm-hmm. So I went off of quality better than the names.
Yeah.
If you wanted more starstruck, you could have had Snuka and Rhodes on there. So that was my process of thinking right there. But yeah, I thought that was fun. I did this in the truck while it was raining outside. I was just writing it down. I have it all filled out through WrestleMania 21. I can keep going, but I'm going to spread this out. I call it Wrestlemania Mashup. Maybe you at home, whoever listens, can follow the guidelines, you know, not use the same wrestlers and not use the same title on the line.
Yeah.
And come up with your own. It'd be fun to do. I like to do things like this. I've done this since I was a kid, and this gives me a chance to share with everyone else, the little things I doodle when I should have been paying attention in class or even in training in the military. I would do these tournaments. So, but yeah. So I hope you enjoyed this long rendition. If you stuck with us since the beginning here, good on you. I thank you so much. So, but hopefully you guys come back and listen another time.
Okay. Bye bye.